Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. I'm your teacher Simeen Amir and today I'm here again with a new lecture. I hope everything is going well at your side. Let's start today's lecture. This is my lecture number 29 for grade Pre-O. We have a history class today and today we are going to start the new chapter which is chapter number 8 and the chapter number 8 is how successful was the Pakistan movement in the years 1927 to 1939. So the first topic for today is the Simon Commission which is on page number 75 in your books. The Simon Commission, like by 1927, communalism in India, communalism means like the division of the people of India or Indians into two major groups like the Muslims and the Hindus. So the communalism in India threatened to undo any cooperation between the two major communities like Hindus and Muslims. The British, however, were soon to take action which restored that cooperation between the two communities. The Government of India Act of 1919 had stated that a commission was to be set up after 10 years to inquire into the working of the reforms set up in 1919. The Indian people and leaders wanted a reform of a diarchy of form of government, like diarchy, the double form of government. The Conservative Party-led government in the Britain feared a defeat at the hands of the Labour Party in the elections due and so hastened that the appointment of a commission in 1928, even though it was due only in 1929 as per the 1919 Act. Because in the Government of India Act 1919, it was clearly stated that a commission would be formed after 10 years of the Government of India Act 1919. So it was due to be in 1929. But it was so earlier, like the British Conservative government, which was already they were governing in the British. However, they feared that it might soon lose power to the Labour Party, which was their opponent, which it thought was too sympathetic to the beliefs of Indian nationalism. So a Labour government might make too many concessions to the Indians. That's why they took some the action, and so the Conservative government therefore decided to bring the date of the commission forward. In 1927, it appointed a 7-man committee under the chairmanship of Sir John Simon. The Indian members of the Central Legislative Assembly exposed some drawbacks in the Government of the India Act of 1919. As a result of it, the Simon Commission was appointed in 1927 to suggest any further reforms. All members of the committee were British and not one of them was Indian. Not surprisingly, the composition of the committee was considered an insult in India and all parties became convinced that they must settle their differences and work together in opposition to the Simon Commission. Firstly, the Simon Commission, which had no Indian members, was sent to investigate India's constitution problems and make recommendations to the government on the future constitution of India. It really provoked Indians as it had no Indian member. Indians felt this embarrassing and so boycotted the Simon Commission. As its Madras session in December 1927, Congress decided that it would boycott the commission and called for mass demonstration. When the members of the Simon Commission arrived in India, it also made a very important decision for the future of the subcontinent for the first time it came out in the favor of the complete independence. Simon Commission was created with the aim of understanding and directing the manner in which the Indian Constitution works and can work more effectively. But the Commission faced regular protests and demands that its unrepresentative members return to England. As the main problem of the Simon Commission was that it did not have any Indian representative on the board. In May 1928, members of the Congress, the League, the Liberals, the Hindu Mahasabha and the Central Sikh League met in an all-party conference to draft or to design the constitution which the Indian people thought should be used to govern their country. Pandit Motilal Nehru chaired the committee that formed this constitution and was contained in the Nehru Report. This was overwhelmingly approved by the All-Party Conference in September 1928. The Nehru Report was a reaction by the Indian people to the Simon Commission. The Nehru Report of August 28, 1928 was a memorandum to appeal for a new dominion status and a federal setup of government for the Constitution of India. It also proposed for the joint electorates with the reservation of seats for minorities in the legislature. Under the chairmanship of Motilal Nehru, the Nehru Committee completed its task. Its report, commonly known as the Nehru Report, was presented in August 1928 to counter the charges that Indians could not find a constitutional consensus among themselves. This report advocated that India to be given a dominion status of complete internal self-government. The main points were like dominion status for India, immediate dominion status for India. This meant that India would become independent but would remain a member of the Commonwealth and accept the British monarch or ruler as a head of state. Commonwealth is an international association consisting of the United Kingdom together with states that were previously part of the British Empire. Federal form of government in India with bicameral parliament. Residuary powers, which are the leftover powers to be vested in centre, strong central government. There would be no state religious liberty, and no separate electorate for minorities, system of weightage to be abolished. So as they said that there would not be a separate electorates for any community or weightage for any minority, even for Muslims. There was, however, to be a protection of the minorities through a system of reserving seats in the central parliament. But there is no reserved seats for Muslims except in the central parliament, which was like 1/4 seats. Hindi to be the official language, and that was a matter of concern for the Muslims. Universal suffrage for the lower house and the provincial council. Universal suffrage means like the right to vote for all adults. And equal rights for men and women as citizens. Gandhi proposed a resolution saying that the British should be given 1 year to accept these recommendations of the Nehru Report, or a campaign of non-cooperation should begin. This resolution was passed. The Nehru Report was rejected. Although the Nehru Report had been drawn up by an all-party Congress, many Muslims were horrified, frightened by its proposals. It seemed that the views of the Muslims had been ignored and that Congress was turning its back on the agreements it had made in the Lucknow Pact, especially for the separate electorates for the Muslims. On January 21, 1929, the All India Muslim Conference rejected the report. And the reaction was like the anti-Muslim suggestions of Nehru Report shattered the Lucknow Pact and the Delhi proposals. Different Muslim leaders expressed their views and feelings on this report. As Sir Agha Khan said, any sensible person cannot think Muslim will accept these insulting conditions. And Qaid-e-Azam on 22nd December 1928 said at the failure of Calcutta Convention and due to stubbornness commented on Nehru report, from now the paths of Hindus and Muslims are separate. In short, all Muslim leaders expressed great dislike to the Nehru report, but it did not have any effect on Hindu community. Muslims met and proposed a few amendments in the report. The Hindus rejected all the amendments and accepted the Nehru report without any adjustment. In an attempt to save the report, Jinnah proposed 4 changes which laid down the demands of the Muslims in India in the clearest possible terms. The first one was 1/3 of the elected representatives of both the houses of the central legislature should be Muslims. Number second, in this Punjab and Bengal, in the event of adult suffrage not being established, there should be reservation of seats for the Muslims based on population for 10 years, as Muslims were in majority in Punjab and Bengal. The residuary powers, which are like the remaining powers, should be left to the provinces and should not rest with the central legislature. And the fourth one was the Northwest Frontier Province, which is now KPK, and Sindh should have full provincial status because in both provinces Muslims were in majority and Sindh was like the part of Bombay. So he asked for the to make Sindh as a to give it a full provincial status. In order to counter the proposals made in the Nehru report, Jinnah presented his proposals in the form of 14 points, insisting that no scheme for the future constitution of the government of India will be satisfactory to the Muslims until and unless the stipulations were made to safeguard their interests. So these points were presented by the Qaid to defend the rights of the Muslims of the subcontinent. In January 1929, the All India Muslim League met in conference in Delhi where Jinnah presented his 14 points. In them he stated, no scheme for the constitution of government of India will be acceptable unless all of the following basic principles are given effect to. He then set out points which were to be the basis of Muslim demands from this time to the creation of Pakistan. Although the events of the 1920s had divided the Muslims community into a number of factions and groups, they were united in agreeing that Jinnah's 14 points should form the basis of any further discussions with Congress on the future of India. These were formally accepted by the conference in March 1929. As Jinnah's 14 points were shortly followed by a rejection of the Nehru report, it was apparent or clear that any Hindu-Muslim cooperation had now come to an end. Both groups, however, continued to campaign separately against the British plans. The Salt March, which took place from March to April 1930 in India, was an act of civil disobedience led by Gandhi to protest British rule in India. During the march, thousands of Indians followed Gandhi from his religious retreat near Ahmedabad to the Arabian Sea coast. As it had threatened, Congress also relaunched its non-cooperation campaign. Gandhi was placed in charge of the campaign, which began on 12th March with the famous Salt March from its ashram, which is like the religious exertion or retreat near Ahmedabad to the seaside village of Dandi. That's why it's also known as Dandi March. This 24-day march became a victorious procession which was widely reported in the newspapers. The British forbade the making of salt except under license from the government. The march was not only an attack on the unfair salt laws but was seen as the opportunity for Indians to refuse all unfair laws and show opposition to British rule in any way possible. British imposed heavy taxes on Indian salt and a series of salt laws. This march was started with 78 people only, but thousands joined them till Dundee on their way. British clothes shops were picketed like they were gathered by people as a protest, and British schools, colleges, and services were boycotted. As salt was needed by everyone. The people who were gathered with this Gandhi in this march, they marched about 240 miles to Dundee to make salt, and there was wide media coverage, which was the protest was accompanied by boycott of foreign goods, and it was picketing of all alcohol shops. There were capitalists, women, Congress members, and some others. There were also three violent incidents in the Sholapur, Chittagong, and Peshawar. In response, the British outlawed, like they banned Congress, they censored the newspapers, and began widespread arrests. Both Gandhi and Nehru were among the many Congress leaders arrested. Jinnah disapproved of the non-cooperation plan as he felt that Congress was aiming not only for independence from Britain but also dominance over the Muslims. Consequently, most Muslims did not join the campaign. I think this is enough for today's lecture. Here is your assignment. You have to do 3 questions in your neat notebook. Question number 1 is, why did the British government send the Simon Commission to India? Here again, you have to give 3 reasons of sending Simon Commission to India by British government. And the second question is, why was there so much opposition to the commission in India? So again, you have to give 3 reasons in 3 different paras. And why did Jinnah introduce his 14 points? Again, at least 3 different reasons in 3 different paras. So this is your assignment. Do it neatly in your notebook. Please do write today's date and day and must maintain your index. Thank you so much, dear students, for watching this video. I hope everything will be clear now. If still you have any confusion, any question, and you can drop down your queries in the comment box. I'll definitely entertain all your queries, and you can ask me anytime in school. Um, we'll meet up again, inshallah, tomorrow with the geography class in another video. And please take great care of yourself and stay at home. Um, till then, Allah Hafiz.